Derbyites, we are now about to chat about drama actress. Not an easy one. I got to say, I had to throw a dart to work out who was going to be in my 1, 2, and 3 slot, although I'm getting more confident the more I think about it. So let's just run through the nominees so we're all on the same page as to who is in the running. Lizzie Kaplan from Masters of Sex, she submitted the pilot. Claire Danes, 2-time Emmy winner in the last 2 years for Homeland, she submitted The Star, which is the season finale. Michelle Dockery from Downton Abbey, she submitted episode 4.1, which in the US is the first 2 episodes of the season as one humongously long movie-length episode. Julianna Margulies, she submitted, from The Good Wife, she submitted The Last Call. She's back in this category. Kerry Washington, Scandal, submitted The Fluffer. And Robin Wright from House of Cards submitted Chapter 26, the season finale from House of Cards. Okay, so I'm going to run through my list and then I'll just go down the line, and I'm desperate to hear what all you guys think. So I've got Margulies in number 1, Kaplan in number 2, Washington in number 3, Danes in 4th, Dockery in 5th, and Robin Wright in 6th. And okay, which I'm so surprised about, because I tell you what, before the episode's submissions were announced, I probably would have had Wright in first. So there you go. Okay, let's go through the list and then we'll talk more in depth. Marcus, what's your list? I know what your list is. I want you to now tell us all how different your list is.
Right. My list changed a lot after I watched the episodes. Before I watched them, I had Robin Wright in first. I didn't put her down in 6th like you did, but I have her in 2nd now. But first place, I have Claire Danes. Surprisingly, maybe not surprisingly. So yeah, it's Danes, Wright, Margulies, and then Washington, Dockery, and Kaplan. I don't think any of those last 3 I mentioned can win. I think this is a battle between Danes, Wright, and Margulies.
Wow. Okay. Daniel.
I have also a very different list from those two, though I do also have, also to my surprise, Claire Danes in first place. I have Julianna Margulies in second place. I have Kerry Washington in third place. Michelle Dockery in fourth. Lizzie Kaplan in fifth. My fourth and fifth are really kind of close. Those could switch either way. And in sixth place, I also have Robin Wright, sadly.
Charlie.
Okay, so I also have Claire Danes in first place. Actually, my first 3 are exactly like Daniel's. Danes, Margulies, Kerry Washington. Then I have Robin Wright in fourth place, which I guess makes me the head of her fan club right now. I got Lizzie Kaplan in fifth and Michelle Dockery in sixth.
Okay,
so I may flip those last 2.
I need to now call you all out about this, okay? Okay, Robin Wright. She won the Golden Globe. She had a lot of heat. She had a really good season. She had the episode where she has the interview. We all thought she was going to submit that. And we know there's been a little bit of controversy about this selection, the finale. She's not really in it very much.
A little bit of controversy.
Let's all. I wish I could show everybody that great YouTube video of Tyra Banks screaming at Robin. I mean, that just, every time I think about it, it makes me chuckle.
Yeah.
I don't want to belabor the point too much, because Netflix, Robin Wright, whoever, have picked this episode for a very good reason. And because she does have a couple of really killer dynamite scenes, especially when she's crying on the staircase. But she's really not in it very much. It's not about her. She's not really the lead actress in this episode, and that does hurt her. And I am amazed that you all have, some of you have her so high. Is it because she's Robin Wright in House of Cards? Or is it because I'm just going by the episodes here, and I just thought, of the episodes, she's down the bottom for me. Marcus, why do you have her in second? I'm really interested to hear it.
Because sometimes they do not go strictly by the episodes. Yes, sometimes they do, sometimes they don't. It's hard to know which category they will do that to. I think maybe this one, she has so much buzz. She is so likable. The actress is. Did you guys see her on Jimmy Fallon last week? She was incredible. And yes, she has the breakdown scene on the stairs. That's really her only scene, you know, other than a couple scenes where she just says a line of dialogue or two. But I have her in second place because she's just so elegant, and she's a movie star. And when she's on screen, which isn't a lot, you cannot take your eyes off of her.
Yeah, you're right.
The
Okay.
way she walks is like...
Yeah, everything.
so-
She's magnetic.
Yeah.
She's magnetic. Daniel, what about you?
Yeah, I mean, Chris Beecham has mentioned a theory about not really penalizing people too much for screen time in, say, supporting or guest categories, but if you're in the lead category, you'd better be a lead in your episode. And it's very rare to win a lead acting Emmy with as little screen time as she has. And you know, the one notable exception we can think of is Allison Janney for the Women of Kamar episode in The West Wing. But Allison Janney in that episode had a big scene where she's ranting about the treatment of women in the Middle East, and Robin Wright doesn't really have that kind of a juicy scene. She has a scene where she's crying on the stairs, but it's almost identical to scenes that like Julianna Margulies has in her episode and Michelle Dockery has in her episode. It's sort of that, you know, reserved breakdown and cry scene. It's like they have the exact moments in those two episodes, and they also have more to do. And the other scenes that Robin Wright is in, she's fantastic in this role, but her other scenes, they're not even about her. The scene, you know, where she visits the soldier who also sort of confessed to being raped, she's not the focus of that scene. She's not really the focus of her scenes with Kevin Spacey. It's, you know, so the scene on the stairs is really the only moment of the episode that's about her. So I, you know, the name can go a long way, the heat off of the show can go a long way, but I really feel like just the amount of screen time and how little it's about her, it's a really uphill battle.
Charlie, you're more on my wavelength about Robin Wright. What did you have anything more to add to what she offered in that episode?
Well, yeah, I mean, I didn't. When I saw that she submitted this episode, I had to struggle to think, what does she do in this? What did she do in this episode? I couldn't remember, and I just actually right before we started our chat, browsed through for her scenes in the episode, and the scenes, you can't discredit her abilities as an actress in those scenes. She is unbelievable in these scenes, especially with the breakdown and crying, and also the scene where she's on the rowing machine, and then she gets up and she tells Frank to basically to you know, metaphorically seduce the president in this great way, and standing up to Frank that nobody else is willing to do. But it's just, and I could see it with the cool factor of the show going on, but other than that, I don't see it as a very likely winning submission.
Okay. Well,
let me say that if she was nominated for supporting actress, she could be Anna Gunn. That's how good she is in this episode. But I think you guys are right. It's not enough. It's not enough. And I'm actually thinking of moving her down to third place after you guys you convinced me that maybe I have her too high on my list.
So easily persuaded. Let's talk about what I'm surprised about, which is that a lot of you have Claire Danes in first or well up your list. I have her in fourth, and this is coming from someone who really likes her and the show, even though it really fell off. It just completely lost me in season 3 and mid-season 3. It made up some ground towards the end. She's very good in this, obviously. Charlie, we'll go to you first. Why do you have her in first?
You know, I mean, it's just a dynamite episode where it's her getting the chance to you know, do the type of things that have won her past 2 Emmys. She's vulnerable, she's emotional, she's torn between everything, and then towards the end, she has to see, spoiler alert, of course, she has to see this person executed in a very horrific way, hanged from a crane in the middle of Tehran. It's just, you know, she runs the gamut with that sort of thing, and you know, we see her having to cope with all of this, and then still, even after that, still determined to clear Brody's name. That's the type of performance that's won her before, and I think it'll win her again.
Okay, Marcus, you have her in first. Do you agree?
I have her in first. I think winning a third Emmy is getting harder and harder these days with so much, so much product on television. But to win your third, you have to show Emmy voters another side of you that you haven't the first 2 years. She does that this year. She pulls the grief card as she watches Brody die. And she plays, at the end, after all of that is over, she goes home and she cries to her father and her sister about being a mother. So she shows the scared card as well. Those are two sides to Kerry that we haven't seen before. So if voters still like the show, which is questionable because it missed out on writing and directing and best series and best actor for the first time ever. But if they still do like the show at all, they could give it to Claire Danes. This also felt like a movie. It was so well done. And I get what the Homeland producer said when he was kind of irritated when the show missed out on a lot of Emmy nominations. He said, I guarantee that if you look back at our last 6 episodes or so, those are really, really good episodes. And he could be right. I think the first half of that season left such a bad taste in everybody's mouths that it kind of hurt the show just from a fan perspective. And I fell into that camp as well. But looking back at the Star episode, it was really good.
Yeah, it was all about, as soon as they left Venezuela, I think the show finally got back on track. Daniel, what do you have anything to add about Claire Danes?
Yeah, I don't think it's a slam dunk for her. I think I have her in first place. I'm surprised. I wasn't a big fan of the 3rd season. I always liked the show before, but I wasn't as huge a fan as everyone else was, and I always found the Kerry Brody relationship that this whole episode is basically centered on pretty preposterous, even from day one. And so that's sort of a tough pill to swallow in this episode. But it's 60 minutes long without commercials. She's in almost every scene. There's maybe 1 or 2 scenes she's not in, and they're not long. She does have this great emotional palette to play with, where she's fighting, and then she's coming to the realization of Brody's execution, and then I think her biggest emotional scene is with her sister and her father talking about her child. And the thing that could hurt her is, even Emmy voters don't live in a vacuum. There are probably going to be a lot, if not all, of those judges in this category who know how Homeland fell off in its 3rd season and who are part of the reason it didn't get more nominations this year. So, they might sort of rule her out even if she has a good episode, which is the only thing that's sort of making me concerned for her.
Yeah, that's a very good point, and I think a lot of that played even for me without even realizing it. I had already gone into that with a bit of bias. But anyway, and which brings me to this: bias and the grief card was what attracted me to Julianna Margulies' performance, which is why I have her in first. I'm obviously very biased towards that show. I think it's one of the best shows on TV, and the fact that she's back in the category was a really big achievement for her. And the last call is, for me, I just think she is just unbelievable. It's a quiet, subtle, beautifully done performance where she's grieving over the loss of little Gardner, and then she goes on the hunt to find out what happened on that day, and she starts imagining the event and how it might have unfurled, and that imaginary vision keeps changing. I just thought that episode was just A+, and she's great in it. And I really felt for her, and I think she should win, and that's why I have her in first. A lot of you guys, though, have her towards the top as well, so it's not just my bias. There is something here. I'm curious to hear what you guys think. Marcus, tell us your view on Julianna's episode.
I love Julianna, and I'm moving her up to 2nd place. Aren't you worried, though, that it's too one note? The whole episode is teary-eyed and crying. Unlike Claire Danes, who goes, she cries toward the end, but, she doesn't cry the whole episode. And I just worry if voters will get bored of seeing Margulies with tears in her eyes for 45 minutes.
Okay.
But I do love her. I love the show. I can't believe it got snubbed for Best Drama Series. That's an Emmy crime, if you ask me. But Margulies, it's so weird. Margulies was snubbed last year, and now some people are predicting her to win. Melissa McCarthy in the comedy race, she was snubbed last year, and now a lot of people are predicting her to win. So will that affect people? The fact that Margulies was actually snubbed last year? That's why I'm not predicting her to win, basically.
Okay, that's a good point. Daniel, what did you think of Margulies?
I don't think the fact that she was snubbed last year really makes much of a difference. I mean, the reason we see people win first, for instance, and then fall out is because, you know, once you get to those panels, even if you were the 6th person they voted for to get the nomination, that episode submission can take you to #1 pretty easily. So even if she just barely made it back into this category in maybe the 5th or 6th slot, you know, this episode is strong. She's a very close second to me. It's almost interchangeable with Claire Danes for me, and she has the benefit where Claire Danes has the problem, where Homeland, you know, was widely acknowledged to have fallen off. The Good Wife was widely acknowledged to have really taken a step up this past season. I'm not a regular watcher of the show. I've never been totally wowed by the show. But you know, this is a really, really strong submission for her. It's very emotional. It is a little. It does lack some range. I think that's true. That it does. It's sort of on the same level of you know, sadness. It doesn't. It's not, you know. It doesn't go from, like, you know, it doesn't run the gamut. But it's solid throughout. She's never really drowning you in tears. So, you know, this is a really close race. I really can't decide between these two decisively, which I think is going to win. And
Charlie, are you also in two minds?
Yeah. Well, I'm always in two minds, kind of, but I do have her in second place, and a very, very close second. This is it's a perfect episode for her. Well, as close as I think she could get to a perfect episode with this season, and it was a strong season. It's those moments of, you know, her, of just imagining, even when she's not on camera, and you know, it's all in her mind when she sees Will, you know, either in the different versions of the message he leaves on the phone, or like when she thinks she sees him, I think it was at the hospital. You know, even though she's not on screen, you really feel that emotion that the writers are trying to convey there, and I really think that's really powerful there. I really think that there's something that her winning would not surprise me at all. She has a very, very good shot.
And in the very next episode, she actually has this huge fight with her husband, Chris Knopf, about whether or not she was in love with him. And it's like a screaming match. And I just wish that screaming scene had been in this episode, because if it was, this would be a slam dunk. She would win. But there is the lack of range. But last thing about this before we move on is a Good Wife person has won every single year. I don't think we're predicting Christine Baranski or Dylan Baker. So if this trend continues, Margulies or Josh Charles are going to win. So
right.
Don't forget that.
Very good point. And it's always been a woman too, so Margulies probably has a slight advantage there if that statistic really matters, and I think it kind of does. So we'll see what happens. Now, Kaplan is an interesting one, because in this category, I was expecting to put her towards the bottom, because, to be honest, Masters of Sex is not my cup of tea. But I watched the pilot again. It's been a while since I'd seen it, and she was really, really good, really impressed me. She does a lot in this. She's in it a lot. And, you know, she gets her kit off, and she gets punched in the face and punches back. And she's very likable. She's just a really interesting, dynamic woman from that period of time. I just really liked her, and I have her in second, which is probably going to change slightly over time. But I really responded to her in this episode, and I'm interested to see what you all think, because some of you have her quite low in your lists. Daniel, what did you think of Lizzie Kaplan? I know you've just seen it again.
I'm the opposite of you. I love the show, and I love this performance. Given that Claire Danes has 2 and Julianna Margulies has 2 Emmys for different shows, she'd be my vote in this category once you weigh all that together with the submissions. And I really like her in this episode, but it's not a very expressive performance. It's very subtle. It's very understated. She does have that really great scene with the doctor, she's sort of in this sort of friends with benefits relationship with that he doesn't understand, and he hits her and he calls her, a whore, and she hits him back, and that's a great triumphant scene, and she has another good scene that's subtle, but you're really rooting for her when she's trying to sign up for classes. And the woman, is really looking down on her and saying, well, when I was your age, I thought my children were important. She's like, no, you're going to sign me up for this class right now. So it's a very subtle performance, but you are rooting for her throughout this. I mean, you're really getting a sense of, through her performance and through her character, a woman's place in this male-dominated world. And in that sense, I think the pilot, and the whole show is really more about her than it is about even Bill Masters, and so I really like her in this. But the fact that she's not that expressive, the fact that the show wasn't that popular with voters overall this year, and against this competition, that it just fell to 5th place for me. But I think she's plausible. I don't think she's completely out of this. This is not a race where I think most of these actresses have no shot.
Okay, well, Marcus, don't you have her in last?
I do. If she wins, it's because she shows her boobies in this episode. There's really nothing else that stands out. I mean, this show is so boring. It's like Mad Men 2.0. Yes, she's really good in the episode, and that punch scene was fantastic. But I mean, that's really it. And I don't know. I said this in the forum. I don't know what I'm missing about this performance, because a lot of people are predicting her to actually win, and maybe it's just because I don't think she can win because she's the new character on the block. She's the only new nominee this year. She beat out people like Tatiana Maslany, who couldn't even get in here. So the fact that she was nominated, I think that's the win for her, because she made it into one of the toughest categories of the Emmys.
Charlie, what do you think? Do you think it's all because she showed her boobies?
Who says boobies anymore?
I'm not sure. Marcus does.
Apparently. We'll save that for another session. But what the thing, my issue with her performance in there is really just that it was just, there was no real dynamite except for the punch. Other than that, which was a great scene, there really wasn't that much for me to go, this is a standout episode. She's very good in it, but there's nothing that just jumps right out at you.
Yeah, that's fair enough. Well, okay, let's go down to the other two, because say what you will about Scandal, but I know a lot of people really despise that show, and a lot of people really love it. For me, it's more of a guilty pleasure, and there are some parts of it that I really don't like and some parts of it that I don't mind. Kerry Washington, I think she really holds that show together. She's a very good leading lady, and she's in this episode, The Fluffer, a lot of it. She's in a lot of it, and unfortunately for me, a lot of this is about the relationship with President Fitz, which I don't really respond to. But she's good in this. I don't think this is the winner for her. I think she had a better chance last year. So I have her in 3rd, and I'm interested to hear what some of you guys think, because I know some of you love the show and some of you don't. So I'm going to go to Marcus first, because I know you don't mind Scandal.
I actually love the show. I love Scandal. And I actually just watched the whole season once it came on Netflix. So it's all fresh in my mind. It's hard for me to pick out which episode is which, but I do feel like in the episode The Fluffer, she has that one great standout scene that if she wins, it's because of that. And it's the scene where she tells Andrew, the vice president, that he has two choices. He can either continue sleeping with the first lady, or he can become vice president. And Olivia Pope is so passionate in that speech. So just, you cannot take your eyes off of her. But on the other end of the spectrum is that Kerry Washington's acting style is very polarizing. People either love her or hate her, and that could hurt her chances. I mean, I think a lot of people were predicting her to win last year, but then when she lost the Golden Globe, and she lost the SAG Award, she lost even the BET Award, is there really a lot of Kerry Washington fans still out there? That's what I'm wondering.
Yeah. Daniel, I know your opinion of Scandal. Why don't you tell us what you thought of the episode?
This is one of those shows where I have to really separate my opinion from what I think the voters are looking at. Looking at sort of Dan Bucatinsky's win last year as a guide. Like, if voters responded to that, would a similar panel respond to something like this? And I think they would. I have a ranked third, and I think it's a very close third. My top three are bunched together so closely, I can barely pick between any of them. I didn't like the episode personally. And I didn't like the acting style. I don't think it's Kerry Washington's fault. I don't think it's the other actors' fault. All of the actors are directed in this same bombastic, if there's a top, go over it. It's basically what the directors must be saying to every actor. And so I did find it a bit absurd, but I know they respond to this, and she has that good scene, and she has another good scene, which a good scene is relative. The scene where she's the scene that gives the episode its title, the fluffer, which was a title that did not give me optimism. But she
yeah.
saying, "What am I to you? Am I your fluffer? Am I?" And she's going through this whole rant, and it's kind of ridiculous, but it's really, if you're keyed into this style, if you're keyed into this show, into this performance, that's going to hit you. And then the scene with the vice president, and then the crazy scenes with the B6, 13, B12, F6, 9. That stuff is, there's a lot of exposition there, and it's not as interesting, but it keeps her on screen in a very dramatic way. I think the top three for me, Danes, Margulies, and Washington, are really all in it with a shot.
Charlie, what do you think about Kerry Washington?
Same as Daniel, got her right in third place. I wouldn't have her as close to the finish line, but I mean, I could definitely see her winning this. That scene with the vice president, that's just a great, shrewd scene of her just showing, everything that Olivia Pope is about. And I'm not even someone who watches. I only watch the nominated episodes, and that gave me everything I needed to know about what she's about. And it's a magnificent performance in those scenes.
Yeah. I think what hurt her last year, I don't necessarily think it hurt her, but a lot was made about her being an African-American actress in this category, and not many have been nominated before, and it became the narrative, and I don't think it worked for her. She was even heralded on the stage on Emmy night prior to her category being announced, and I just, I think a lot of panel voters will be thinking to themselves, we don't care about that narrative, we just want to reward the performance. And so I hope this year that even though it's a very important and interesting angle to her nomination, I just think they should just focus on her performance, and she's certainly in with a chance. I just wanted to say that. Look, finally, Lady Mary, Michelle Dockery in Downton Abbey. I always make fun of having to watch these episodes because she always submits these long 2-hour episodes or 1.5-hour episodes, which to me personally are quite painful to have to sit through. I used to be a Downton Abbey fan. I'm really not anymore. I've moved on from Downton Abbey, and I only watch it when it's on in my household and I have no choice. And I must say that she just didn't really do it for me again. And I really like her as an actress, but apart from the great crying scene she has with Jim Carter towards the end of, I think, the first half, I can't remember now, a lot of it to me was really robotic and she just didn't do anything for me at all. And that's a shame because, they obviously keep nominating her because they like her character. What about you guys? Marcus, what do you think about Lady Mary?
Talk about unlikable. In our comedy actress chat, we said maybe Julie Louis-Dreyfus is not likable enough in her episode, but she could still win. Michelle Dockery in this episode, Lady Mary, is such a bitch. There's a scene with her sister where her sister's like, I'm going to go to London and visit with my boyfriend. And she goes, oh, how pleasant for you. And it's like, what are you doing? Why would you submit this? I get why, because she cried at the end. She has that crying scene. But the whole episode, she's a complete prude to everyone. She's pouting and she's grumpy, and she really doesn't have that much dialogue until the end. It's just unlikable. I don't know What am I wrong? What do you guys think? The only reason I have her in 5th place and not 6th place is because it's a 2-hour episode, and sometimes size matters in these races. But otherwise, it would be in 6th place.
Yeah,
I just gotta I think that you gotta preface it by saying yes, her husband died, although it was 6 months prior to when the episode takes place. But still, like that wasn't the thing that really threw me off with her. The one thing was when she's saying goodbye to her son, letting the nanny take the son, and she calls the son an orphan. And it's just like, what is wrong with you?
Yeah, pull yourself together.
Yeah, it's like that kid is gonna have so many issues. I mean, it's just I don't know, but yeah, she's so unlikable, and you just every time she's on screen, and it's because it's the nature of her character, you just go, it's painful.
Mm-hmm. And you know what? If we had seen the episode where she finds out that her husband's dead, and we see her grieve, immediately after, not 6 months after, she could be a real contender here. But they decided not even to write or produce that episode. It's a missing piece in the Downton Abbey universe. We don't know how she reacted when she found out that Matthew was dead.
Yeah, Daniel, what did you think?
Disagree pretty much entirely with the assessment.
Yeah.
That she's unlikable in this episode. I have her ranked 4th. I do think she's a plausible choice to win. I mean, I don't think anyone submitted a knockout episode in this category, and when we've seen that happen, crazy things can happen. And she and Robin Wright are the only nominees in this category whose shows got into Best Drama Series. So we know there's support for Downton Abbey. Her husband did just die, and died 6 months ago, but let me notice that nobody's talking about Claire Danes being unlikable for wanting to just give her baby away 4 months after her terrorist boyfriend was hung in Tehran. So I think that's a little unfair. The problem that Downton Abbey actors have, of course, is the ensemble nature of the show is screen time. Even in 2 hours, she's not in it as much as she could be, and that's what hurts her the most. But I think her emotional arc is great. I mean, those early scenes where she's sort of mean and unpleasant. I don't think it's mean necessarily. I think it's numb. I think and she's playing that very well. So that once you get to the catharsis of her scene with Carson, it really has an impact. I don't think the second half of the episode, the second hour, works as well for her. Though I do think it still works pretty well, because you get that range where she's sort of coming out of this fog she was in, and she's not only doing that, she's sort of this feminist fighting for her say in the estate. So we see this arc of hers from completely defeated to sort of rising to fight again, and I have her ranked 4th, but I could see this winning. I mean, I don't see this character as unlikable in this episode. I think she's sympathetic. I think she has a good range. If the stiff upper lip thing, that's just the nature of the character, that hurts her a little bit. Screen time hurts her a little bit, but yeah, I disagree wholeheartedly with the assessment basically that's been made.
Okay, well, you know what? If she does win, we can play this back and we can say, look, Daniel saw it coming, and I think you made a very good point about Downton and House of Cards being drama series nominees. That certainly doesn't hurt them. And that could certainly could be a factor in the level of support that they have, regardless of how much screen time they have, for example. So anyway, this category is not easy. Well, we've given you some food for thought. You guys should all now have a think about it and vote in the dream ballot and adjust your predictions. I have a feeling we're going to see a surprise in this one, and a lot of us will be scratching our heads wondering why that particular person won, but at this point in time, I think it's Margulies, and the rest, a lot of you think Claire Danes is up there too. So anyway, thank you guys for your time, and let's reconvene for yet another Slugfest shortly.